We've got the Rams' first unofficial depth chart of the regular season, and there's some big surprises. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor and subscribe to the Locked On Rams YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and also let us know what is your biggest takeaway from the Rams' first depth chart of the season. Let us know down below in the comments section. Getting close to 14,000 subscribers. Should hit it by this weekend. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade. Bleacher Report, 24/7 Sports, SI, Dodgers Nation, the Rams for Locked On. As always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's entering his 9th season covering your Los Angeles Rams. The People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's episode, we've got the first depth chart of the season for the Rams opening game against the Detroit Lions. We're going to break that down. But first, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. All right, Travis, it's like Sean McVay said, S is getting real. And it's getting realer than real now because, one, we're just Greg Zuerlein days away from opening kickoff. And two, you look at this depth chart, the first big takeaway I have is look at the specialists. And we talked about Kyren Williams being listed as the punt returner. Well, You have Blake Corum as the kick returner in the first Rams depth chart of the season. And I think Rams fans' first reaction to that is, well, wait a second. With the new kickoff return rules, this is someone who could be returning 2-3 kicks a game versus Kyren Williams, who you're going to see a lot of fair catches, probably 90+% of the time.
This makes no sense to me for 100 different reasons. Let's start with the top 3. I'll ask again, why is Tutu Atwell on the team? Let's just start with that. If Tutu Atwell is not doing this, what's he here for? Because you don't throw him the ball. He doesn't catch the ball. He doesn't do a whole lot of things in a receiving capacity. So if his gift is this unbelievable speed, why is it not being unleashed in the return game? I don't understand that. Number 2, going back to the Kyren Williams thing, if we're just going to fair catch punts, why him? Why not have somebody that is a receiver first and foremost? Why not Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua or anybody? If we're just going to do fair catches there, that doesn't make any sense to me. And thirdly, in the new kickoff rules, this is the one that maybe makes a little bit of sense, that you're going to try to use him in a way that maybe he's not going to get a ton of carries backing up Kyren Williams, at least at the beginning. You want to find a way to maximize what he does do. But I also think that the ball is going to be kicked out of the end zone far more than anybody's anticipating. I just don't quite understand the goal of this. I'll say it again. I'm going to let Sean McVay do his thing. I'm going to let Les Snead do his thing. They have been right way more frequently than they've been wrong, but this one on the surface of it just doesn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, and with the new rules, you're going to try to prevent teams from touchbacks. And there's a really high probability that he's going to be returning kicks. Like I just said, I kind of looked up his history for the show. He returned 18 kicks at Michigan, but that was a couple years ago. There came in 2020 and 2021. You look at the depth of the Rams running back group, and look, one of the big differences this season was the commitment to not just the running backs, but the offensive line to create holes, and their commitment to duo and going to the gap schemes and everything they've done with their running game, so much more physical front. So, yeah, I mean, to have your top 2 running backs in positions where they're going to increase their workload, and when you do that, you increase your injury probability. It's definitely an unusual move, to say the least.
Well, think about what you just said, too. And you're right. You're already shuffling the offensive line because, A, it's not working the way you wanted it to, or B, it's injured, or C, all of the above. So that's not a good sign. You've got a Kyren Williams player who has an injury history. Puka Nacua is still not 100% healthy, according to everything that we're hearing and reading. You've got a quarterback who is of an advanced age, still really good, but one hit away from having Stetson Bennett be your guy. And you've got Cooper Kupp, who we're still looking at and thinking, okay, is he going to be like he was a few seasons ago, or is he starting to slow down on a more permanent level? There's a whole bunch of things going on offensively, and that's supposed to be the part of the team that you worry about the least. That the defense was supposed to be the part that had the most question marks. But when you look at the Rams offense, if everything is operating as it's supposed to, they're going to be pretty darn good, but they're only a thing or two away from really having to fill some pretty significant holes. Hopefully it doesn't become an issue. Hopefully they stay healthy. Hopefully, in particular, Matthew Stafford stays healthy. But there are a lot of questions on that offense that I don't think we would have had when the training camp opened up.
Yeah, for sure. And I think when you look at just the new rules, too, he's kind of a guinea pig, too. I mean, throwing him into a guinea pig spot where you're trying to see if you can have success with that or how it impacts players. And yeah, the preseason was one thing with the new kickoffs, but it's going to be totally different during the regular season because preseason, you're just trying not to get injured. You're trying to figure things out. They're going to really cut guys loose in the regular season with that new kickoff. So, yeah, it's definitely interesting. I mean, to see one running back as one of your special teams specialists, the punt returner, kick returner is already a little different. But to see two, you got to hear what Sean McVay has to say about this. Now, other big takeaways, you mentioned the offensive line we talked about in yesterday's show. Well, it's official. You look at Steve Avila, he is at left guard. Jonah Jackson is at center. So Avila moving back to the position he played in his rookie season. Jonah Jackson taking over at center. And I think that this does absolutely give them their best combination as far as their front to start the season. But yeah, considering everything we heard about Steve Avila during the offseason, during training camp, and how his best position was going to be center, and he could be a multi-time Pro Bowler, all Pro Bowler. This is definitely just, I think, temporary, but it's definitely something to follow early on the season.
Put this firmly in the category of, okay, I'll roll with this, but making this change at this point in the season really is curious. They must have seen something that they really did not like with Steve Avila at center. There's no way that you make the decision to move him to center at the end of last season, which they did. They go through basically all of camp with him as your center. And then right before the start of the season, you say, no, we're not going to do that. He's going back to guard. And we're going to put the guy that we signed to be a left guard at center who has not played a ton of football there in the last couple of years. It just does not make a lot of sense on the surface unless there was something that really stood out as something of a weak spot. So again, that's something to look at. Steve Avila is a great player, a tough player. He played incredibly well at left guard. So I'm not worried about him holding his own at that position. I'm just more curious as to what led to the position change to begin with. Why the one decision several months ago, and then look, had they opened camp and after a week or so said, it's just not what we were looking for, that doesn't work. Okay, that's fine. That happens all the time. But that they got right up to the 1 yard line before the start of the season and made the change, that's very interesting to me.
Yeah, and like you said, Sean McVay must have seen something he did not like, and whether that be Steve Avila giving the most of the reps at the center spot for a good portion of the offseason, and Jonah Jackson knowing you need to utilize him in some capacity. He's your big offseason free agent signing, and I mean, he doesn't have a ton of experience, just 24 snaps in his NFL career, but hey, it's the first game in Detroit on the road in the first two games of the season. So I think that looking back, considering how temporary this possibly could be or long term, that really is the big question as for me as far as was this the right decision. But yeah, I mean, they're throwing some curveballs at us. I mean, they're throwing some curveballs at us as far as the depth chart goes.
It's really unlike them. You know what I mean? And I think that's probably why it hits you the way it hits you, why it hits me the way it hits me. And a lot of Rams fans probably feel very similarly. It's that the Rams are pretty steady as she goes. They really don't shuffle unless they need to shuffle. They really don't make head-scratching moves like all of a sudden your middle linebacker is gone right before the middle of the season. Your two running backs are placed on special teams return duty kind of out of left field. This is very un-Rams-like. Look, again, I know I'm repeating myself. If they like it, I love it. Let's see what it looks like. But for the first time in a while, going into the season, you're like, yeah, what exactly are they up to? We'll see what it looks like in a few days.
Yeah, and also the fact that Rob Havenstein, he did participate in individual drills. You got to feel good about him starting. You look at the rest of the depth chart up front. You got Rob Havenstein at right tackle. You got Kevin Dotson at the other guard position, Jonah Jackson at center, Avila at the left guard position, and left tackle, you have Joe Nopu, who we talked about yesterday. But some more surprises, some more takeaways from the Rams' first unofficial depth chart of the season. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
All right, you've heard us talk about FanDuel a lot, right? FanDuel is America's #1 sportsbook because it's incredibly fun. You can take all of the best parts of football and make it about you. Make a little money along the way, right? Whether you're talking about team totals, player props, money lines, all of the different things that you have at FanDuel. But this is a little bit different. We have something a little different for you. Right now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. If you've never had the Sunday Ticket, you don't know what you're missing. It is unbelievable. All the football, all the time. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, and you can cancel at any time. It's easy too. Just visit FanDuel.com and download America's #1 sportsbook for a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, a special shout out to those everyday listeners out there watching and listening to every single episode of Locked On Rams. And you can join that Everyday Listeners Club too. You just got to watch or listen to 5 episodes a week. Join that 5 episode per week listeners watchers club, and then you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. All right, we're going to pick it up in the second segment about the defensive side. And I think you could probably make the case that one of the most interesting details of this first unofficial depth chart is Tre'Davious White and Cobie Durant listed as co-starters at the cornerback spot. And Darius Williams, he's the #1 cornerback, but at CB2, Tre'Davious White or Cobie Durant is what it's listed at. And I think what's so interesting about that is this just academic, or is there something deeper to this? Because Cobie Durant was getting first-team reps throughout the entire summer, and I think the Rams might be really looking at giving Cobie Durant more reps because we know how high they were on him last offseason. He was kind of anointed as one of the big kind of pillar corners of their future, then definitely took a step back last season, had a really good offseason, really good camp. It looks like he's trending in the right direction as someone that could be a key contributor this season.
Yeah, I think that's the positive way to look at it. I think that's the right way to look at it, that this is a player who continues to improve. This is a player who continues to earn the trust of the defensive coaching staff of Sean McVay, and a person that you can kind of just leave out there and know that they're going to get the job done way more often than they're not. That I think is right and accurate and positive. The other way is maybe Tre'Davious White isn't quite delivering what you were hoping he's going to deliver. We'll see. So much of this is speculative. So much of this is what we think it may look like, or trying to read in what we think that may have happened at practices or joint practices or whatever this is. That, again, Sean McVay and his coaching staff have done an awfully good job. I was reading something this morning about how you almost just have to assume that they're making the right move, because they really haven't made very many wrong ones along the way, minus the one bad year after the Super Bowl, and that was directly related to all sorts of injuries along the way. So wherever they have these guys, I'm willing to start with them and feel pretty good about it. But I was a little surprised that Trey White wasn't listed by himself.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think that it just speaks to the fact that Cobie Durant's very talented. They was a little bit miscast. I mean, when you look at the missed tackles, he had 11 missed tackles last 2 years. That's definitely not where you want to be at. And really the coverage grades on the outside is an area where he could definitely improve and help this team. I mean, in 2022, that's definitely was the highlight coming off his rookie season, where he led the league in interception return yards. And last season gave 370 yards and just 42 targets He allowed a pass rating of 98.3. So definitely had a sophomore slump after a promising rookie season, but looks like he's trending in the right direction once again. As far as Tre'Davious White, you mentioned on this show a couple different times. He's one of the X factors, one of the wild cards on this team, because we know that when he's at its best, when he's healthy, he's not just a Pro Bowler, he's an all-pro level talent. He's just coming off some big-time injuries. He's coming off a ACL, a Achilles injury, and just about, hey, what Tre'Davious White are we going to get? And if you get close to the best version, this could be one of the best secondaries we've seen since Jalen Ramsey.
Somebody's going to do something on defense that we're going to be like, that's amazing. Somebody's going to do the thing that's like, not that makes you forget about Aaron Donald, because that's impossible. Not that makes you think, okay, you're better off with that. That's impossible. But somebody's going to have a season that makes you say, they're a lot better than I thought they were individually. The defense collectively as a unit, we'll see what that looks like. But somebody's going to pop on defense. Hope, maybe it's Jared Verse. Maybe it's Braden Fisk. Maybe Byron Young goes to another level. Maybe it's Darius Williams or Trey White. Somebody's going to pop on that defense. And I'm kind of excited to see it, because while I wish we didn't have to live in a world without Aaron Donald, getting to see a defense without Aaron Donald is something very new. And I think that somebody somewhere on that Rams defense is going to take advantage of it.
Absolutely. I think it's a fantastic point, because they are upgrades. Darius Williams and Tre'Davious White, those are upgrades at corner. A better optimized version of Cobie Durant is someone who can absolutely help this team in a big way. But on top of that, Cameron Curl, I think, is going to be the player that Rams fans are going to fall in love with early. I think he's a leader. I think he's going to be extremely impactful. And you combine him with John Johnson, with Cameron Kinchins, Quentin Lake. You're going to see him in the slot, close to the line of scrimmage. He's someone that could be wearing the green dot. He was named as a team captain. And then I think what's also really exciting is Chris Shula and all the safeties and how he's going to utilize it. We're going to see tons of 3 safety packages, 4 safety packages with John Johnson, with Kinchins, with Yeast. I mean, all the people freaking out about the loss of Ernest Jones, and rightfully so. But I think one thing that is going to kind of ease it a little bit early on the season is seeing how Chris Shula utilizes those safeties. But to your point, I mean, you just don't know how many one-on-ones you're going to get for Byron Young, for Jared Verse, for Kobe Turner. I mean, these guys along the offensive line, the edge rushers, because the truth of the matter is we could spend 10 hours breaking down the defense, but we'll know more in one quarter with how they play without Aaron Donald on the field. So, hey, Sunday's coming, guys, and it's going to hit the fan very soon. We're going to see when rubber meets the road what this defense looks like without AD.
Well, for sure. And here's the thing, kind of putting the two things that we've talked about so far on today's pod together, the offense is going to be what leads this team as far as they're going to go over the course of a 17-game season and however far they get into the postseason, if they get into the postseason. But what happens early in the season, I think, may have a lot more to do with the defense than anything else because of what we're talking about. They're reshuffling the offensive line. You have some injuries to some key offensive players, or at least some little nagging things along the way that maybe will be okay or maybe will become lingering issues. So I'm not so sure that if early in the season your defense isn't what's going to kind of keep you in some of these games to a point until the offense can get fully healthy, start to fire on all cylinders, not unlike what we saw last year. Last year, the offense was really kind of sputtering through the early part of the season, and all of a sudden they caught fire, and over the last 8 weeks, they were fantastic. Into the playoffs, they were fantastic. But I wonder if this won't be a little similar, that the defense, even though we don't know exactly what it's going to look like, doesn't have to kind of lead this football team for maybe the first month or so that offense can finally catch up, get healthy, find its footing, find its rhythm. Because, again, this is the first few games for all of these guys together in a very long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you look at projections, I don't care what website it is, what publication it is, yes, you will see this Rams defense projected as a bottom third defense in the NFL. Having said that, that's what they all said about the defense last season. And for a good portion of the season, they definitely were one of the strengths of this team. So it's tough to determine how they're going to look with some significant changes. But the other big takeaway is the inside linebacker spot. I mean, you go from having Bobby Wagner to Ernest Jones to Troy Reeder and Christian Roseboom. And yes, we talked about the fact that the way they're utilized in the system and the way the Rams value inside linebackers, you have to consider that. But still, I mean, when Reeder was with this team a couple years ago, he struggled in coverage. he struggled against the run. He missed a ton of tackles. Christian Roseboom is not necessarily a guy that you think can project as an above average player, but I guess you just have to supplement it with the other areas of this defense and hope they can put them in positions to get spots. But I'm telling you, when I wake up at 3:30 in the morning in a cold sweat, Travis, what I always think about is going up against these run-heavy packages, the 49ers, the Cardinals, the Seahawks, the Eagles. Yeah. I mean, teams on their schedule this season, how they're going to try to take advantage of that weak spot with the Rams linebackers. And I mean, just look at Laporta and St. Brown over the middle in week 1. I mean, so we got to see these guys performing. How are you going to adjust to that?
I think you bring up a really good point. And I'm optimistic. Hopefully the Rams can score a bunch of points on Sunday night. I don't know if the Lions are going to be a great litmus test for where the Rams are.
Yeah.
The Lions pretty good. The Lions have a real shot to go to the Super Bowl for the first time in the history of their organization. It's going to be at home. They're basically running the same team. They've got a whole bunch of advantages going into this one. I don't know. Whatever happens on Sunday night, I don't know if that's necessarily an indicator of what's going to come up on the next 16 weeks.
Absolutely. I think it's a fantastic point that the barometer there, going up against a team on the road that's hungry, it's going to be a raucous environment, and it's going to take a couple of weeks to truly assess what this team has, especially when you look at Braden Fisk and Jared Verse. Those are two rookies that they're going to need to lean on that side of the ball. So totally agree with that point as well. Still, you got an experienced Matthew Stafford. You have Puka Nacua coming off a historic rookie season. Cooper Kupp, he definitely looks the part early. I think he's in for a revenge season. I think the offense does have what it takes to put up points and try to win with the football. And hopefully with Kyren Williams and Blake Corum, they don't get, nothing bad happens to them on special teams. They can carry this team offensively. But coming up next, some more takeaways from the Rams' first unofficial depth chart of the season. It's real, folks. Opening kickoff this week. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
Passion, drive, and patience. The winning formula for championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and a whole lot more. So whether you are into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors, they've got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you will always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part, it's guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. All right, Travis, here in our third segment, back to the offensive side of the football. And just first and foremost, I mean, just looking at this depth chart and not seeing Tyler Higbee just feels weird.
It's weird. It does.
It just feels strange. And unfortunately, he's going to miss the start of the season. Really severe knee injury suffered against the Detroit Lions. Dirty play. We already kind of went off on him a couple different times, but you look at the takeaway here and you have Davis Allen ahead of Hunter Long as the Rams TE2 behind Colby Parkinson. And Davis Allen, he was playing with the first team throughout training camp. It was pretty clear he was going to be Colby Parkinson's backup, who is the starter. But yeah, no Tyler Higbee, and you got Hunter Long behind him. And I think Davis Allen he's someone that big target, big catch radius, guy that can move the chains. I like him early in this offense, getting some opportunities.
Yeah, I do too. And I keep going back to what we were talking about before, which is his involvement later and later into the season last year. That I think that's really telling. And hearing people that really understand Sean McVay's offense talk about it, the opportunity for tight ends to make an impact early in their careers is pretty low. It's an incredibly complex position for a new player coming out of college to learn. There is a pretty steep learning curve, and that Allen was able to kind of take that learning curve on, and by the last third of the season or so that he was a regular part of what they do, I think is very, very encouraging. Obviously, they went out and made the acquisition for Parkinson. He's going to have a big part of this. We haven't really seen him used as a pass-catching target all that much in his previous role at his previous stop, but I think that could change a lot. And again, put it into the mix. Puka may not be right. We still don't know exactly what's going on with Cooper Kupp. We know they're going to have a 1-2 punch at the running game, but maybe the tight end position is something that they really lean on moving forward.
Yeah, and he's not a guy that will wow you with as athleticism of 4.8, 4.40. I mean, there's been talk about that, but I think for him in this offense and the opportunities he's going to get, they know it's sideline to sidelines, move the chains, take advantage of his size, put him in spots to just catch the football. They're not asking for an elite tight end or anything like that. So, yeah, I like Davis Allen. I mean, big Clemson guy. Clemson as a program, they've fallen off elite status. He's not going to be elite tight end, but still I think he really helped this team.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Clemson, maybe you get with the times. Maybe you decide that NIL and the transfer portal are not mortal enemies, that you could actually, I don't know, treat the athletes with a little bit of respect moving forward. That's just me, but that's more of a Clemson topic than it is a Rams topic. I'm optimistic. Look, this comes back to the two most important things, or the three most important things, I guess, the way that you can look at it, is that CQI, the coach, quarterback, and injury. The coach, they've got covered. The quarterback, they've got covered, assuming health. The injuries, and this is already what we're talking about here, right? This is because Tyler Higbee is injured. He's down. You're putting new guys in new spots to see what they can do. If that I piece of the CQI holds up, I think the Rams are going to be in pretty good shape, especially offensively.
100%. I totally agree with you on Clemson, too. It's time to embrace NIL. If you're them, you're not going to get recruits just because you have a big slide in your football field. The last time I checked, Bernie the Brewer is not an elite high school recruit that's going to come to Clemson. So, yeah, for sure. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMac_LA. And you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.